Hello, it is me, E4 or E4 Estrogen, doing a podcast. I've been hyping this up for a while, and when I say hyping it up, I mean putting it off constantly. But besides the point, welcome to Sidetracked, where I just ramble and rant. Very little script, if anything, just an outline of notes. No format, just me chatting. People like my voice, so I thought I'd give you the gift of my voice. Wow, that sounds way more pretentious than I meant it to be. But I figured I'd just chat, talk about something I like to talk about. Each episode may have some sort of theme, it may not. For this one, it sort of does. I will be predominantly talking about a Pokemon video game tournament I recently entered. But before I do that, considering this would probably be episode 1, I would like to properly introduce myself. Uh, like I said, you might know me as E4. E4 Estrogen. You might know me as Soul. You might know me as Soul May. Any of those names is fine. I use she, her, and I'm going to be your host today. You might be thinking, doesn't a podcast usually have more than one person? Well, joke's on you, it's only me here today. No, I'm kidding. I do plan on having more people in the future, but for this episode, we're just gonna write it solo. Just me, whoever's listening, and also me because I have to edit this. So basically, me, you, and I. A horrible remake of Me, Myself, and I. Obviously, which is the sequel to Eat, Pray, Love. I don't know, they just sound like they go together. Either way, the tournament that I had entered was a free-to-enter women's tournament where anybody who identifies as female or gender or non-conforming was allowed to enter. I took this as a good opportunity to join since my experience with the Pokemon video game isn't too much. I predominantly have played the card game for most of my life. So, voice crack. So, I thought it'd be an enjoyable experience. And it was. There's definitely some things I wish I could have changed, but nothing on the tournament holder's part. It was more of I didn't get proper sleep the night before, so I just felt miserable the whole day. And I definitely felt like I couldn't have performed and tested my team way more, or way better. But that's alright. For those who don't know much about the Pokemon video game, this episode might not be for you. If you just want to hear me talk though, feel free to stick around. My team was running uh it was it was series 6. So certain Pokemon are banned. It's Sword and Shield. And it's doubles. The team that I was running was Lapras G-Max, Alcremie G-Max, Torracat, Durant, Bronzong, Dracozolt. Now, my game plan going in was to have a team that can just be as tanky and annoying as possible. So I ran the Torracat with the Eviolite with Intimidate, Will-O-Wisp, Taunt, and Fake Out, just to be a nuisance on the field at the gate. I ran the Lapras G-Max with a pretty standard build, just max special attack, max HP, Hydro Pump, Ice Beam, and Thunder, nothing too weird. And I ran Light Clay Hydration, which was an interesting choice on my part. The Light Clay I was chose because it gives me longer Veil usage, which is predominantly the reason I ran Lapras, because I know its damage output isn't too good. So that's why a lot of people will combine it with stuff like Comfy for the Giga Drain weakness policy activation. But I chose to run it with Alcremie Gmax. And I ran it with the Sweet Veil. So my Alcremie prevented me and my allies from being put to sleep instead of running Aroma Veil, which prevents Taunt on Alcremie. A reason I ran Sweet Veil and Hydration is because going in, I expected a lot of Amoonguss, and I just figured I wouldn't get enough value out of Aroma Veil, because even if I did get taunted on Alcremie, Dazzling Gleam as a move isn't bad. Just having the ability to put some kind of damage out on the field is good, and my Alcremie was specifically bulky because, and it was specifically ran, so it was just longer on the field, the more of a nuisance it came. But I found even when it was more of aggressive Alcremie, people just left it on the field. It doesn't do enough damage to really warrant an issue. And Decorate, although annoying, if you can just kill the Pokemon before it gets decorated, it's not that hard to beat, especially since you don't have much of a speed advantage in said team build. So they would usually get one or two good blows into your Lapras before you could even get off that much damage from said decorating. But that was my choice I made. I even decided to run Aromatic Mist on my Alcremie because I thought it would be a helpful boost for special defense, especially since of my Bronzong's build. And my Bronzong build was something I was very proud of, and it paid off a lot. My Bronzong was Leftovers, Heat Proof. It was max HP, max defense, and anything that was left over went into special defense. I ran it with the moveset Trick Room, so in case my opponent used it or I needed to use it. Iron Defense, because more defense makes it harder to kill. Body Press, because that's starting to become more of a meta move. The higher defense, you don't need to have a high attack. Doesn't matter how high your attack is. Body Press uses defense as an attack stat instead, so you can run a Bronzong with literally zero attack stat and run Body Press, and then not have to worry. Foul Play will do jack shit. No, I'll still do quite a bit because you're Psychic, but besides the point. And I ran Ally Switch, so Bronzong could stay on the field longer or take a hit if necessary. My other Pokemon I decided on were Durant with the Life Orb, max speed, max attack, nothing weird there, and Dracozolt, which I was hesitant to add. It was the last addition on the team because I needed somebody to fill a speedy slot, and I didn't have many choices that I had liked. I was thinking instead of running the Dracovish, but I realized Gastrodon would destroy my team if I had ran the Dracovish. I would just have little to nothing to deal with a Gastrodon being tanky and existing on the field, especially if my opponent used sort of Max Quake or Max Steel Spike while Gastrodon was out. I would be in a heap of trouble. Now, Dracozolt isn't that much better of a choice considering its predominant move is Lightning, but that's besides the point. My main frustration was that I realized I was running two Hustle Pokemon, and that didn't go in my advantage that day. I'm not sure if I mentioned, I ran the Adrenaline Orb on Dracozolt, because I was expecting quite a bit of Arcanine, and I was hoping the Adrenaline Orb would be the boost that I would need to outspeed Arcanine, and it would also just make it more of a nuisance. Even if its attack was lowered, it would have more likely a chance for the Bolt Break to get the second ability effect. Um, Overall, looking at this team, I didn't have any major complaints about build looking back on the tournament. If anything, I would maybe swap out either the Dracozolt or the Durant for something else. The Alcremie, I'm still not 100% sure, but considering the team, I have no complaints with those. And if anything, I would have swapped the Durant or the Dracozolt, but I do not know to what specifically that would have made the day go better for me, though. Now, I kept some notes about each match so I could keep track of what did I do well against, what were they running, what were their move sets, and how can I counter it. Because it's not something I had been accustomed to. In previous tournaments, I just went with what knowledge I could figure out, and all games were like best of one. And in Showdown, I just usually had all the information there on the right for me. I could just look and say, okay, this Pokemon was faster than this one, but slower than this one, or this Pokemon has this move and this move, or this Pokemon is this max speed or this low speed. So I've been accustomed to almost only using Showdown to warm up, so that wasn't the best. Now, it wasn't too bad of an issue though, because I had played the online format quite a bit against other players, but because I hadn't played it in quite a few months, in a couple of seasons, my rank had dropped down. So I went from being in the Master Ball tier to the beginner tiers, like 2, 3, and I ended up playing quite a bit, and I got back to, I think, rank 6 or 7 before I decided to take a break. And then the tournament came up before I could get much more practice in. But that's okay. Uh, First match. I do have the names written down for the players, but I think I'm going to just leave them out, considering I don't have like their specific permission. I don't know, like, I probably could say it, but I don't know. I just feel like it's easier to just leave them out. My first opponent was very difficult team for me because they ran a max speed Arcanine that had Snarl, and they also had a very tanky Gastrodon. So that wasn't going in my favor. And in the back, or in the front, depending on which round it was, they had to give you Grimmsnarl with Foul Play, Reflect, and Light Screen. So overall, not a good team for me to deal with. Because Arcanine could just constantly lower my stats, make Decorate not as useful. Grimmsnarl would reduce the damage I do, and Gastrodon would take away half my moves. So there wasn't much surprise factor I could have on my opponent. They were able, or sorry, they were able to counter everything I had for the most part on the field just by the team they had selected. One second. It's important to stay hydrated. Anyway, the first match, uh, ow, sorry. The first match they had started Arcanine Grimmsnarl, and it was not going well for me. I saw the Arcanine and the Grimmsnarl that game, and I saw the Gastrodon. I didn't even get to see what their fourth Pokemon was round one. And that wasn't good for me, because information-wise, that leaves me very limited. But I did find interesting that basically my last stand in the first round my plan was to bring Bronzong and use the Iron Defense Body Press to my advantage, considering what they did bring. The issue was my opponent used Flamethrower on my Bronzong, which isn't usually an issue, because Veil was up, I have a small special defense stat boost, and I'm running Heat Proof. The issue was Flamethrower has a 10% chance to burn your opponent. My opponent got that 10% chance on their first try, thus just drastically negating the damage that Bronzong could do, and made them practically useless, and just barely doing enough damage on the field to not even really being worth it. The second match didn't go much better. I did get to see the last Pokemon was Mudsdale. Uh, my final, I ended up with uh Aromatisse and Bronzong on the field, which was an interesting turn of events. I remember specifically thinking after that match, I should have used Durant a lot more. I was relying too hard on the Lapras to do what I could, but I was just too worried about the Arcanine just wrecking house on me. Because even though my Durant was speedier, at the time I didn't really think about that in general, and I was too worried that my opponent had some sort of ally switch or something up their sleeve on like their Dusclops or something they decided not to bring. And I was expecting like a freaking flamethrower ally switch like one shot my Dynamax Durant or something. I don't trust Durant's special defense. So I was too scared to bring Durant and I regret that. But the interesting exchange I found out was Aromatic Mist on Alcremie says raises your ally's defense or special defense by 1. And at the time, I had Alcremie and Bronzong out because they were my last two Pokemon. And I'm thinking, okay, well, my best bet here is to use Bronzong's Body Press to get me out of the situation. The issue was I needed a special defense boost because my opponent had two special attackers out. So I tried to use Aromatic Mist, and at the same time, I tried to use Ally Switch so I could uh, make Alcremie take the damage and let Bronzong get the boost because I knew Alcremie wouldn't do enough damage quick enough with the Pokemon that they had on the field. The issue was, I didn't know at the time, Aromatic Mist targets the slot, not the Pokemon. And that's an interesting thing to think about because it doesn't get Rage Powdered, it doesn't get Follow Mead, it will always hit your ally. But if ally switch happens, in which your Alcremie and your ally swap positions, Alcremie can't Aromatic Mist itself. And since Alcremie is now in the slot position that it was going to mist, it can't mist. So it failed. And I didn't know that interaction happened. So I had ended up using Aromatic Mist and Ally Switch, doing absolutely nothing, and just throwing away a turn. I'm not saying that lost me the match, but that was frustrating to deal with, and I lost very soon after. But no complaints. I made misplays. They won 2 games in a row before I won one. GG's to them. I'm going into match 2 with 0 wins, 1 loss. My opponent had a very interesting team. It's not one that I'd ever seen before, and I was unaware what to be expecting going in. They had Pincurchin, Alolan Raichu, and I'm thinking, well, Alolan Raichu says if lightning terrain is active, you're double speed. And Pincurchin is electric terrain setter. But I remember, Pincurchin's extremely slow. So I wasn't really worried. Because I was thinking I'll just bring Durant, Max Quake, and nothing here is going to be an issue. Because the only other things they had on their team were a Dusclops, Delmies, Volcarona, and Primarina. They had nobody who could deal with a Max Quake. So, like, if they did not run like a Talonflame or something that could have been swapped into, or even a Rodham that could have been swapped into to mitigate a Dynamax Max Quake. Now, my original game plan was to start Dracozolt and Torracat, and then bring Durant in the back, because I wanted to see what my opponent had planned. My first turn, they had started with Dusclops and Delmies. Now, I really like Delmies, and the thing about Delmies is it's Grass Ghost, it's really slow, but it packs a punch. And its ability says Steelworker. All of its steel moves have, I think it's a 50% boost. which is quite strong, especially with anchor shots saying that 80 damage and you can't swap out. It's annoying to deal with. So my immediate thought process was, well, I have a Torracat and Dracavolt or Dracazolt. I always get mixed up. I have those on the field. So let me taunt the Dusclops so Trick Room doesn't get set, and let me use Aerial Ace on the Delmies from my Dracavolt or Zolt. Fuck, I need to look this up. Dracazolt. Let me use Aerial Ace Dracazolt on the Delmies because it's super effective and it's a guaranteed hit because Aerial Ace doesn't check accuracy. And Hustle still gives the boost even though it's 100% accuracy. Uh, I did hit the Delmies. It was very hurt, but not dead. And that's when things got scary because I activated Delmy's weakness policy, which isn't good. And my opponent, since they had started with Dusclops, had Frisk and knew what items were on my side of the field, and they noticed, oh, your Dracazolt has a Adrenaline Orb. It'd be a shame if I used Poltergeist on it. You know the move that says if you have an item, it does a whole lot of damage, and you just activate it by weakness policy, and I pack a punch. So Dracazolt was just gone in an instant, and I had to use a lot of resources to get rid of the Delmies, and with the stuff they had, and the back being Volcarona and Pincurchin, I don't remember the specific events that occurred in said match, but I remember it ending with uh, my Bronzong on the field against a Dusclops who was burned. So my idea is, well, I can't hurt you because you're Ghost and I only have Body Press, but I have a lot of defense, a lot of special defense, and every time you try and set Trick Room, I can reset it. So I'm thinking, okay, I probably can outlive this burn. So they use Nightshade. I'm like, oh, this might be troublesome, but I have leftover, so I'm thinking, okay, I can probably outlive it. They use Nightshade again. I'm like, okay, looks like I have a pretty good chance. My opponent then uses Pain Split, and I realize, oh no, I can't win this. Because every time they would get close to dying, they could Pain split our HPs in half, giving them more HP of my own, and then they could go back to Nightshading because I have no way to damage them, and I have no way to reduce said damage they were doing to me. Because Nightshade bases off of level, not based off of stat. And because they're guaranteed 50 every hit, and because they know I can't hit them, every time they get close to like 5-10 HP, Pain Split. And I couldn't deal with that, so they had won round one. And in round two, I'm thinking, okay, let me play this slightly different. I'd opted to not bring the Bronzong, and I instead started the Durant and put Dracazolt in the back. Uh, and I don't remember the specific events that happened in said match. My notes are very sparse and events. It was more of what were they running. What ended up happening is I remember my notes I remember writing in the last few Pokemon. Uh, they ended up switching their Alolan Raichu out to the Dusclops. The other Pokemon then died who was on the field, so Alolan Raichu was immediately sent back out. So it was Dusclops and Alolan Raichu on the field, and I didn't click in my head, oh, they just switched out. It's Alolan Raichu. It has Fake Out. So instead of using Protect, I tried to kill the Raichu, to which for my greediness, I was hit with a Fake Out and a Nightshade. And then the next turn, I killed Raichu. I got hit with a Nightshade. I smacked Dusclops. I get hit with a Nightshade, I'm dead. I leave Dusclops with half health, good game. I lost 0-2, match 2. So I'm going into the third match of the game, third match of the day. No win so far, not even a round win. And you can imagine I'm not feeling too good about myself right around here. But also, I almost forgot, the tournament, if you chose to play every single round that is not top cut, it was 7 rounds. I didn't want to stay around for 7 rounds after those first 2 matches, to be fair. I got to match 3 thinking, okay, if I win it out, maybe I get the top cut. My next opponent was a colossal Primarina team, which no matter how many times I play, I never remember how to frickin' play against it. I always forget how speedy uh frickin' Colossal is with Steam Engine and weakness policy. I always underestimate its damage, I always underestimate its tankiness, I always underestimate its speed. And with Primarina with it, it's always so hard for me to deal with. But at the first round, uh they decided not to start it. They instead started Dracavolt Amoonguss, which I was pretty able to deal with the taunt of Torracat. Then so I won my first round against them. So I'm in the third match of the day in a 2 out of 3, and I finally win my first round. We go into round 2. They switch things up. They start Primarina Colossal this time. They activate it out the gate. I didn't catch them on it. I just got weakness policy. There's not much I can say about that. I just got utterly rolled that match. The next one, I have a better idea what they're going to try and pull. I opt to run Alcremie and Lapras, hoping that the the Aurora Veil that I would set up would be enough to win me the game. Keep in mind though, at this point, even though it was round 3, I still had no idea if the Colossal was a physical or special attacker. Because it's equal in both stats, and every time it was on the field, it immediately got Dynamax, so I never got to see what its base moves were. But in the end, I did able to predict when they were going to go for the Aqua Jet. I was able to fake out. I was able to destroy the Colossal mostly before it got the weakness policy boost, and I was able to win 2-1 first match of the day. I get to match 4. My tiredness, the fact of how little sleep I got that night just caught up with me this match. And I get into this match, my opponent has Porygon Z, frickin' Clefairy, Talonflame, Urshifu, Dracovish, and a Corviknight. And I'm like, this match is not going to be fun. My opponent opted to run the max speed Porygon with the Life Orb, and a Clefairy with Helping Hand, and no attacking moves. It was very interesting to see when my opponent's Clefairy got taunted, they opted to let it stay on the field and use Struggle to purely get the Friend Guard boost. Which was surprising to me, but it didn't matter. They obliterated me. Round 1, round 2, I couldn't keep up. My opponent Hyper Beam one-shot a Dracavolt that was Dynamaxed, full health, and one shot from Porygon Z, and the Life Orb took it down with I took it down to 1 HP, and then it hit me, killed me, and then it died to its own Life Orb, which was frustrating to say the least. But they ended up winning. I was down 1 match win uh all day. I had 2 round wins all day, and after match 4 I'm like debating like do I want to play the next one? And after like 5 minutes I was like so tired and sweaty. I was like, "Dear God, I do not." So I messaged the admins, I dropped from the tournament, and I just decided to take a break for the day. You know, sometimes you just have to realize maybe today wasn't my day. This team didn't work out as well as I wanted to, but that's okay. I ended up dropping, like I said, and am I proud of how I played? I'm proud I entered. I'm proud of myself for reaching out and trying to do a newer experience because I had never done an online tournament like this. Am I proud of my performance? Not really. Am I proud of the team I selected? For the most part. If I could go back and swap out one Pokemon or maybe swap one ability, I'd probably be even happier. But for the most part, I'm happy with the team I had built. I will link the Poke Paste of the team I was running under this podcast wherever it gets uploaded, most likely just being YouTube at the time. I will post the Poke Paste below it, so you can see what my idea was going in. But I didn't play too well. Uh, Congrats to the people who did win. I think it was somebody named like Yoshi and Lugia, so congrats to them. Uh, I think if I will probably do another tournament like this whenever they have a next one, and I will try to make sure to take better notes, and maybe I can do a whole other episode on it. Uh, as regarding to the podcast, considering this is episode 1, this will not be all Pokemon. It will be whatever I want to talk about that day. I'm going to try and record pretty often. I might try and record longer episodes. For now, though, I'm pretty happy with this for an episode 1. I have to go back and edit it anyway, so I'm going to say hi to my future self who has to edit this. I'm also going to say hi to you. Thanks for listening. Maybe you'll join me for the next episode. Hopefully it's coming soon, but no promises. Depression really do be a bitch. So, see you around, and welcome to Sidetracked. Peace.